more than in any other country in the world. Jollife is one of them. Timor's history, not in the same way. So, very pleased to have you. I think we can even give you a big hand before you say that.
Thank you very much. Well, I thought I'd just give you some background before you see the film about how it came about. I worked as a journalist. I was one of the few people who was here at the time the Indonesian invasion began. And in 1975, I came here as a real novice journalist. I was just starting out. In fact, I had to scrape around to find some qualifications from a few Australian newspapers who knew me, and then I published a few small articles. When I arrived here in the wake of the Civil War in September 1975. And at that time, as some of you may know, Australia was supporting the Suharto dictatorship in the invasion of East Timor. It was very difficult for journalists to get in because there was a blockade in Darwin. The Labour government had imposed a ban on planes taking off for East Timor. So some of us went and hung around the wharf at Darwin, waiting for a boat to go or for the first plane to go, and seeing the first refugees arrive from the Civil War. And eventually I managed to get a plane in with a whole lot of other foreign correspondents, and the deal was that they had a 48-hour we had a 48-hour round trip to see, and we were supposed to come back to Australia. But when I arrived, I mentioned to my colleagues that I wouldn't actually be returning because I was really keen on telling the story. So that's how I got into East Timor at that time. And I already knew some Timorese leaders who had been to Australia, and I had been here briefly once before as part of a student delegation invited by the Portuguese administration, the Portuguese colonial administration, soon before everything fell to pieces. And so one of my first tasks was actually to go to the East Timorese, the border with West Timor, to see what was happening there, because that was the most important thing we all needed to know. How was the border? Fretilin had won the Civil War, defeating UDT, and the UDT people had gone over the border, and some of them had allied with the Indonesian army. Others did not like that, and they were in a semi-imprisoned state on the other side of the border. So in mid-September, I went down to the border. It was one of my very first assignments, and had a terrifying baptism of fire not far from Balibo. I was with a New Zealand television crew, and we came under mortar attack, and but we survived, and came back through Batagadei, back to Balibo, and I slept in a house actually that night, which I will always remember because it had mattresses in it. There were very few places in East Timor that had any mattresses during the Civil War. And those mattresses later turned out to be fateful, because the house in which the Balibo-5 died was that house, and those mattresses were used to burn their bodies later. So for many years I went to Portugal after I came back to Australia after seeing the first wave of